In this video, I want to inform anyone that's using Microsoft Windows 7 that on January the 14th of 2020, it will no longer be provided support by Microsoft. And if you found this video on YouTube, I provide a link below to my website that has more information. Now, my first link says, what does this end of support mean? If you click this link, it will open up a new tab, or it will open up, it will go to this web page telling you what it means. It says, when Windows 7 reaches the end of support on January the 14th, 2020, your computer will still function, but Microsoft will no longer provide the following: technical support for any issues, software updates, security updates, and fixes. So that means that if you're running Windows 7 now, after January the 14th, you won't receive any more technical support. So if you have questions or issues with your system, Microsoft will not help you. You'll have to get help from a local provider or someone that will provide you technical support. You have to pay for it. You will also have no more updates or security updates, which means that your operating system will be vulnerable online. So the best thing for you to do is to not get online, or if you do, don't stay online long, because there's not going to be any more updates and fixes to keep your operating system secure. Now, on this system that I'm currently working on, this is the only computer I have with a Microsoft operating system. And when Windows 7, this was a Windows 7 machine, when Microsoft offered Windows 10 free upgrade, I waited to the last day before I upgraded. And I did run into several issues. It went through the boot loop that, when I read across the internet, a lot of people had, but that's probably has to do with this comment here. It says this is on Microsoft website, while it is possible to install Windows 10 on your older device, it is not recommended, because with an older device, it can have a lot of problems with the newer operating system. And here is what your operating system has to have as a minimum. So if you click this link, it will take you and you can read more about it, what your system has to have inside of it in order to run Windows 10. Now, there are some websites that allow you that tells you that you can still get Windows 10 for free. However, make sure that when you do get if you are upgrading to Windows 10, that you're not getting it off a random website, because a lot of times when they say free Windows 10, it may contain keyloggers or malicious code because the operating system has been cracked. So be very, very careful about websites that claim to still give Windows 10 for free. And on this link, if you click here, it shows you, and this is the bleepingcomputer.com, and if you read through it, it tells you how you can still go and try. Some people down below on the comments said they were successful, while others said they were not successful. Here, if you want to purchase the Windows 10 products, it is from Microsoft. And make sure that when you're on a website, that if you're wanting to purchase Windows 10 across the internet, that you're getting it from a legitimate source. I can type whatever I want and link it somewhere else. So when you read that, make sure when you click onto it, that after it loads, that you're still getting from the Microsoft.com website. And make sure that that little lock is closed. Now, that sometimes gives a false sense of security, that when you're purchasing something online, seeing that closed, sometimes that gives you a false sense of security. But that's not what this video is about. Now, here you can purchase it from Microsoft. Windows 10 home users can purchase Windows 10 for $139 US dollars. For Windows 10 Pro for $199.99. Again, that's US dollars. Or you can purchase Windows 10 Pro for workstations for $309 US dollars. But I'm not really trying to talk you into installing Windows 10. Now, if that's the route that you want to go with a safe place, like purchase Windows 10 disk or whatever at the store, or if you purchase it online, make sure that you're purchasing it from a safe and secure place. Now, what I've done with most of my computers, and the only reason I haven't put Linux on this machine, is when sometimes I still get people email me or message me and ask me how to do something that's on Windows on Linux. And sometimes I like to go back and reference things on my Windows machine to what I have on my Linux systems. And most of my other desktop and laptops have Linux on it. Now, if you're going to make the switch to Linux, Here's something that I wish I have known before I switched to Linux. It wasn't hard to learn. There is a learning curve. So when you switch to Linux, don't immediately expect to do the same thing that you did with Windows, because you don't install software the same way. It's a completely different operating system. Now, you'll learn more about that if you decide to switch to it. But here's something that I want you to be aware of. There's a lot of open source software or free software or freemium software that works both with Linux and Microsoft Windows. And if you start using those software that you can use on both platforms, then that makes, when you switch to Linux and you start using the same software that you were using on the Windows system, it will make you more in that comfort zone so you don't get frustrated by learning a whole new system. You know, a lot of people didn't want to switch from Windows 7 to Windows 10 because they didn't feel comfortable in it. When you clicked on that start menu, you had a big thing that had a bunch of tiles, advertisements all over it, and I didn't like it when I put Windows 10 on this system. I found something to make it look like and work very similar to Windows 7. However, this is a Windows 10 system. If I click on System and I'll let it load, in a few moments you'll see that this is a Windows 10 system. And you can see that I have 16 gigabytes, not a lot of memory. It's got a 3.4 gigahertz processor, not too bad, but it's not really new. It's 64-bit, so it's not a bad machine. It's just was a decent machine when it had Windows 7 on it. But here are some browsers. If you use a browser that you don't see on this list, it still may work with Linux. These are not all the browsers that's compatible with both Windows and Linux. You can still, for those of you that found this on YouTube, you're using a browser probably, unless you're using a smart TV or an Android device that uses a different browser that's on your Windows or the Linux system. But here's a lot of the browsers that you can use: the Brave browser, the Chromium browser. Now in Linux, the Chromium browser, probably you'll get the Chromium from actual Chromium. There's different versions of Chromium in Windows, and the Cent browser is a Chromium browser. It's a open source of the Google Chrome browser, and you can see it's very quick. Even with my extensions loaded, it loads very fast. It's probably one of the fastest browsers on this Windows system. And there's Firefox. Here's Opera and Vidalia, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And instead of clicking on those and going to the websites, I have the name of each browser, and you can go through here and look what each one of them looks like. Now, I do want to emphasize that the Opera browser has a built-in VPN, and if you install it on your system, the VPN is not active by default. So I will show you how to activate the VPN in case you want to install it on your Windows system, and if you ever decide to switch to Linux, it still works the same way. Now, as you can see here, I can turn my VPN on and off by clicking on that little icon in the URL bar. However, when you install the Opera browser for the first time, you don't see that little VPN icon in your URL bar. You have to go to your settings or preferences, and when you do, click the Advanced button, go to Features, and here's where you can watch. When I turn it off, the VPN goes away, and when I turn it back on, it comes back. And it actually is turned on when it comes back, so I'm going to disable that just for right now. When you do turn on the VPN and you go to surf, it's not going to reveal your IP. So if I go and Google, say, what is my IP address, it may show that I'm living in a different state according to my IP address. So that will hide your surfing while you're on the internet. It will give you some sort of security. Now, please be aware that if you're using a VPN and you're purchasing something like from Amazon or Walmart or another online store, that it's going to look like you're in another state. So you may get a phone call from your bank saying someone in another state's trying to purchase something, and they might want to verify that it's you. So make sure, if you're doing a lot of online purchasing, that you disable your VPN and make sure that you're purchasing from a trusted site so they know that it's you coming from your location, that you're not trying to be someone in another state. And another thing I like about Opera is, and you can install add-ons with other browsers, but this comes by default installed in it. It's a snapshot tool or a screenshot tool. If I click this, it's going to say copy or crop to a snapshot. If I come up here, I can crop this page, and I can let go, and I can capture it, copy and close, and by copy it puts it on the clipboard, or I can cancel this. If I say capture, it's going to open up in its own little Opera editor, so I can zoom in, zoom out, I can make changes, I can draw arrows, I can highlight things, I can draw on it, I can put emojis, I can crop it, and I can save this and send it to people. So it's kind of got a built-in editor, snapshot or screenshot tool along with a built-in editor. So Opera is a very nice browser, and it works, like I said, with both Linux and Windows, and each of these do. And you just click those links and you can download them and install them on your Windows system. Now, I'm not going to go through each of the software that you see on my web page. So if you found this video on YouTube, I will provide a link that you can look at more about the descriptions I have. But Scribus here, or Scribus, however you want to pronounce it, it's a desktop publishing software. And when I was a teacher, I had an assignment for my students to make a brochure about a planet. And so it could be fictional brochure, like you're going on a tour, but then it had information that's true. You know, it talks about the temperature, the locations of the planet, and that helped the students understand information about the planet, and it made it a fun type of assignment in the process. But that's not the purpose of this. Scribus works with both Windows, Mac, and Linux, as you see here. So if you're into desktop publishing, you don't have to give up your desktop publishing features. If you're switching to Linux, you can double click or click on that link, and it will take you to this website where you can read more about it. And if you want to download and install it from your Windows system, you can, and when you decide later to switch to Linux, you can click on it and download the version for your Linux program or your Linux operating system. So that is a great desktop publishing tool. Now, Microsoft alternatives, and this is one of the sections I do want to show you some actual documents so that you can see the difference between each of these. Now, you can install Microsoft Office on a Linux machine, but you just can't run an executable file to install it. You have to use another program like Crossover or Wine or Play on Linux to install it on your Linux system. And sometimes that can be very cumbersome, installing something that way on a Linux system. However, there are some open source or free versions of Office packages from other companies that work very close or very similar to Microsoft Office. Now, if you're a power user, these probably won't work for you, but for the average household user, it will. And one of the packages, and one of the biggest packages, is Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office comes with Writer, which works like Microsoft Word. It comes with Calc, that works like Microsoft Excel. It comes with Impress, that works like Microsoft PowerPoint. And it does have Draw, where you can actually draw like in Microsoft, where you got Paint. But I will tell you this, Microsoft Draw will also allow you to edit PDF files. And then you can go and say export them as a PDF after you make the changes and give it a new name to save it as a different document, or you can save it with the same name in a different folder. So that's another advantage of LibreOffice, is you can use Draw to edit your PDF files. You can use LibreOffice Math. If you're doing complicated mathematical equations or formulas, you can put those in Math, copy them and paste them in any of these other packages. And this is an example of LibreOffice Math, whereas you can come in here and put your mathematical formulas or equations. LibreOffice Base is just a database type of program. Now, let me quickly go through and explain the other two, and then I'll show you examples. Another type of free Office package is called OnlyOffice, and it contains only documents, spreadsheet, and presentation. Document is like Microsoft Word, spreadsheet is like Excel, presentation is like PowerPoint. And then I'll show you examples in just a few moments. You can look through the little slideshow to see examples. You can see the name in the lower left corner. The last one, and I do have Microsoft Office Online, but that's an online version of Microsoft Office that without installing it that you can use, and it works well. But I'm only showing you the ones that are installable on your Windows and Linux system. Another one is WPS Office, and this one's the one that I do have set up as default right now. Now, I do randomly change the default because when you see I click on the Start menu, I do have LibreOffice Writer, Impress, Draw, and Calc within quick access to where I can load those up with the quick click through the menu. But if I open up a folder and it has a document file, spreadsheet file, or presentation, I can double click on it, and right now I've got it set to open with WPS Office. Now, the newest version of WPS Office comes with a PDF reader that works okay, or works great in Windows, but the newer version of WPS Office in Linux, the PDF reader, as of now, the last time I've tried, it conflicts with some of the other PDF programs like PDF Arranger that I decided to install the previous version of WPS Office so that it won't conflict with any of my other PDF software. Now let me go and show you these three versions, WPS Office, OnlyOffice, and LibreOffice. I already have some examples here. Here are the files, or my examples that I have. I have energy flow of ecosystems, and this was actually created on a PowerPoint system when I used to work for a middle school locally. This one was created in Microsoft Word, and as you can see here, they were created in 2011. That was when I created these documents. And the one where midterms, this is where the team that I was on, we created a template where we put students' names and their grades in them and printed them off to have midterms to send home. So let me show you these examples. This is WPS Office. Now, as you can see here on WPS Office, this is its document program, so that you can see that what I created in Word is very compatible. Even the spell check says I got things spelled wrong, but it's actually right. Sometimes things are spelled right and it tells you they're wrong. You can go in there and add words to your dictionary, but that is what a program in Word looks like. Now let me go to OnlyOffice, and we're going to compare them. This is OnlyOffice, and OnlyOffice, just like WPS Office, opens these up in tabs. And one of the reasons I like opening in tabs is when I minimize these programs, even though I have 3 different documents open, if you look on the taskbar, there's only one icon. Whereas LibreOffice, I have one for the Word document, one for the Excel, and one for the PowerPoint, which is okay. It doesn't bother me to have 3 icons, but these allow me to open up and tab between the spreadsheet programs, the PowerPoint, and the Word. Now again, this is the Word document for the WPS. This is the Word document for the OnlyOffice. And here's what the Word document looks for LibreOffice. Now I will tell you, when you first install LibreOffice, the view is kind of an interface, a standard toolbar. It looks very basic. It looks like the old version of Microsoft Office. You can come into change your view, and you can go into your tools options and say that you want to make changes. You can go into the options, and I may put that eventually on somewhere on my web page so that you can make changes to it. But you go into your view, your interface, or your user interface, and change the way that your ribbon or your toolbar looks across the top. I've got it set to grouped bar, so it groups them in sections, very similar to your ribbon within Microsoft Office. So it kind of has a new look to it as well. Now let's go back and look at the Excel. Here's what was created in Excel. This is where my team that I worked with, and this is just a bogus student name. We would put the name of the student here, the grade of the student, a reason, and then we would save or print out that document for that student to take home as a midterm. And that's for WPS Office. And for OnlyOffice, here's the spreadsheet. And again, OnlyOffice and WPS Office, they have a very modern, elegant look to them. And as you can see, they both look the same as in the document that was created with both Word and Excel. So I don't have any compatibility problems with Word or Excel in either of these. Now occasionally, if I'm doing something that has a lot of features to it, I might find that the text is not wrapping properly. But if you look at what the default settings are within your Microsoft Office, set the same font, set the same margins, and I know I'm pointing to a spreadsheet, but if in your document here, if you set the same margins, the same font, you can create some of the same settings, so that way it will help you with the compatibility issues. If you got a larger font than you had of the document that you used for Microsoft Word, and your margins are not the same, it's not going to wrap the same, and it will look different in your documents. Now taking a look here, this is the Microsoft Word, and this is the spreadsheet. Now let me look at the very last one, which is the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint that I created at school was about energy flow in the ecosystem, and as you can see as I scroll down, there's no compatibility issues whatsoever. And I can say actually play the current slide. I can go into to play this, and I could project this on an overhead, and students would think that I'm using an actual PowerPoint. Even though it was created on PowerPoint, it shows up fine with no issues here in WPS Office. The same thing with OnlyOffice. Here's the PowerPoint. I can scroll through it. There's no compatibility issues. So if you're a home user and you can't, or you don't have access to Microsoft Word, and you don't want to go out and purchase it, and you don't want to use the online version, you can download either WPS Office, you can download OnlyOffice, or LibreOffice. Now here's the PowerPoint from LibreOffice. You can just navigate through here just like you would in actual PowerPoint, and you can make changes, and you can basically have a lot of the same features that you have in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. But like I said, LibreOffice is the package that contains the most, I guess you can say, tools. It has the Writer, the Calc, the Impress, and here it has the extra, the Draw, the math, and your database programs. So let me go ahead and close these out. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the applications on my webpage because not everyone does video editing, not everyone does programming. So I'm just going to point and relate to what I put on my webpage. Now, I do have some PDF readers. If you click this link, it will take you to the Ocular website, and this is my default PDF viewer. So if I go back to that folder, when I double click like any of these practice exams, so if I double click the second one, it's going to open up in my default program of Ocular, and the Ocular, that's the little icon for it with the little glasses. And when it loads, it works the same as your normal PDF viewers that you're normally typically used to using in Windows. And I will say that this has an annotator that I'm not going to go through and show how to use all the features here, but you can go through. It's got a lot of tools that you can go through and use, and it's a very small program for Windows. Now, if you're using like the GNOME environment or the XFCE environment in Linux and you install the Ocular, it will install the KDE dependencies, so it will appear to be a little larger in Linux. But for Windows, you're normally used to installing larger software on your system. But it's still not very large, even with those dependencies. Another one is Evince, E-V-I-N-C-E, and I probably butchered the name, but that's another lightweight PDF viewer. I found that this one, if you're looking like with online magazines, this one produces better images with text than this one. Now, your Adobe Acrobat Reader, you're probably familiar with that, and that's probably the most popular one on the Windows and Mac systems, and you can still install it on Linux. It's just an older version, so it may not look the same, but you can install the Adobe Acrobat Reader on Linux. Now, here's a piece of software that most Windows users probably are not familiar with. It's the PDF Arranger and PDF Shuffler. This program can work as a PDF viewer, but it increases the power of PDF files. Let me go and say that I'm going to open up this, and I'll say open with, and I go in here, and as you can see, I haven't opened it in a while because it don't appear on the list, but I can come down and scroll, and you can see on my list I have PDF Arranger and I have PDF Shuffler installed. If I click on PDF Arranger, and I don't want to make it my default app for opening, but if I hit open, what this will do is it will open my PDF file and it will show them as large icons, allowing me to make, and because I haven't used it in a while, it takes a while to load, and once it does, once I start using it, it won't take as long to load. But this right here, this is a practice exam that for the students that I created when I taught 6th grade science. I can actually zoom in to where I can use this as your typical PDF viewer. But here's the power of PDF Arranger. As the name implies, it allows you to rearrange these files or pages within the actual PDF program itself. So if I wanted this particular page on the very first page, I can move it over and the first page moves over. Or if you're a teacher and has an answer key here on the end, I could right click, choose delete, and then I don't have to save it, but I could delete this answer key and I could print the thing out saying print all, or if I wanted to leave it on there, I could say print in just the range of pages and not print the answer key. But if I delete it out, I could say delete or save this as student version and save the one with the answer key as teacher version, allowing me to edit this document by deleting. You can also crop things. So if there was some answers at the bottom or things that you didn't want your students to see, you could say crop and come in here and crop this particular page. Now, this video is not about PDF Arranger. If I don't have a section, I think I already have a section on my webpage about PDF Arranger, or it's very similar to PDF Arranger, that you can use the same information to understand how to use this program. PDF Shuffler works the same. It just requires a few more steps to install it, but it does the same thing. So instead of zooming in and zooming out, you got a bar you pull over to zoom in closer. You can pull it to the left to zoom out, but it works the same way. Now, other things on the system that you can put on your Windows system that works with Linux is an annotator for PDF files. You can actually install backgrounds to where you can actually type within a PDF almost like a Word document, so that you can take notes in class, or if your teacher or a professor puts his or her notes online as a PDF file, you can download them to your computer, and while they're lecturing, or if you go back to class, you can pull up your notes. You can use highlight tools. It almost works like an editor It's not really an editor. You can annotate, you can highlight text, you can draw on it, you can take notes on it. So it's a very nice little feature to use both in Windows and your Linux system. Now, not everyone uses video editors, so I'm not going to bring these up. I'm just going to refer to the actual images on my webpage. But if you do use video editors in Windows, there are some free versions, open source versions, and freemium versions for both Windows and Linux that work great. The first one is AvidDemux. I've already have a section on my webpage, and if you're not familiar with my webpage, if you look through it, it will help you understand software that works great with Linux system, especially if they're Ubuntu or Ubuntu derivatives. The operating system that I use on most of my system is Ubuntu Mate 18.04, the long-term support. And I do use AvidDemux quite often. I do have a little device in my guest bedroom to where I record over-the-air television. And sometimes I will record programs, like if I'm watching a football game and there's a program I normally watch, I can record it and take that raw data and use some of the programs below to make it much smaller, like an MP4 or MKV. And if I record commercials, I can cut the commercials out with AvidDemux, and I show you how to do that on my webpage. It's a very powerful program, and yet it's a very small program. For more editing features, I use Kdenlive on both my Windows and Linux system. I do a lot more video editing within my Linux system than I do this Windows system you see here. This is my editor of choice, is Kdenlive. It's very, and when I say simple to use, I've learned to use this one first. And I saw a lot of people bragging on this Olive video editor. I tried to use it. I wasn't familiar with where all the commands were, so I went back to this one only because my comfort zone. I already learned where the commands that I do use, and I don't know all the features of it. It's just what features I do know of Kdenlive. I'm used to where they're at because I learned them. But if you're learning from the beginning, you might want to start with Olive. It's a very powerful program. It is an alpha stage, but from what I hear of others and from what I've seen of it, it didn't appear to be buggy for what I used it at. From what other viewers that rate it on YouTube and display help videos and help files across the internet. Now, these last two that I have here are Lightworks and DaVinci Resolve. These are not open source. These are freemium, which means when you click this website, in order to download it, you have to register your name and your email address, and you have to then download the program and install it. I think this one you have to click a link to verify that it's a working email in order to install it. Now, this one right here is a much more complex video editor, so I prefer the Kdenlive just for the simplicity of it. So if you're more into the in-depth with video editing, either Lightworks or DaVinci Resolve will probably work for you. Now, I do use Vid Cutter quite a bit. Now, on Sunday nights when I record things as I'm watching football, like I said, I can use the AvidDemux to cut out commercials, but sometimes if I record something on PDVS that there's no commercials in the middle, there's sometimes if I record it by a timer, there might be something that they're promoting at the beginning and the end, and I can bring it up with Vid Cutter, put my starting point, ending points, and say cut, and save the media. It will immediately save it and trim it off, and it will not have to re-encode. And that way I can edit this very quickly without re-encoding. So Vid Cutter works for both Linux, Mac, and Windows. And if you click this link here, it will take you where you can download the program for your Linux system. Now, for your video players, if you're familiar with Pop Player on the Windows platform of a media player, Bammy you can install on Windows and Mac and Linux. Then it's a very simple, minimalistic type video player. You can bring up the menu by right-clicking on the video screen or hover over it to get your play, fast forward, to change your volume, and to access your menu here. So Bammy is a very minimalistic look. It's very similar to Pop Player. So if you're using Pop Player on Windows, there's not a Pop Player for Linux, but Bammy is the closest thing to the Pop Player on your Linux system. And if you want to install Bammy on your Windows system, you can click here and install it, and it will work great. It's a very simple. There's no menu bars across the top. You just hit play, and when you want to maximize, there's no bars whatsoever unless you hover over the video screen. Most of you are familiar with VLC, so I'm not going to talk much about that. You may not be aware that you can put all types of skin, change the looks of VLC. And one reason why I do like VLC and I don't delete it from my Linux system or my Windows system is because I do have a Chromecast in my bedroom. And with VLC and SM Player, They work so that I can take the video that's in my VLC player or my SM player and I can send it to my bedroom television via my Chromecast. So it does work with the Chromecast, and that's VLC media player and the SM player, which is also skinnable. So those will work both with Windows and Linux. Now with image editors, this is not replacing Photoshop, and that's not claiming to. Penta is more like a Microsoft Paint on steroids. It has a lot of the Paint features, but it does have some features very similar to your Photoshop. You can work with layers, you can change from image to image, and it does keep an unlimited history here. And you've got lots of tools on your toolbar and your palette. You can make changes, and through your menus there are a lot of commands that you can use that you're probably not aware of. And when I first started learning to use this on Linux, as I would learn the features, I would create a web page showing how to use all the commands within the menu. So you can find that on this web page by looking through the menus. Photoflare is very similar to Penta. It has a lot of the same commands. They're just in different locations, but it's a very powerful image editor, just like Penta. And Penta was based off of Paint.net. So if you've ever used Paint.net on your Windows system, you can't install Paint.net on Linux unless you're using a program like Wine. But Penta is very similar to the Paint.net, and you can install plugins that will allow you to open files that were created in Paint.net within Penta. So Penta is a very powerful image editor, even though it's very small and very simple. Now the only bug I found with Penta is if you're trying to edit a very large image, it may crash because it can't handle the size of it, but you can reduce the size of the image and edit it fine. Now with Photoflare, you still have a lot of the same features you have with Penta. It's just that they're in different locations. So this is a very nice editor as well, a very small editor. A more powerful editor is GIMP. Now a GIMP is not a replacement for Photoshop. It just has a lot more features than the Penta and the Photoflare. So if you're looking for more advanced features within a program that don't cost anything, then GIMP is a nice image editor to meet that needs. Now if you are a professional and using Photoshop, you're probably not going to be able to get by with using GIMP. But your average household user that edits images, probably this will work fine. So before you go out and buy some expensive software, you can download GIMP on your Windows system, and then when you get on Linux, you can download and install it, and you'll be in that comfort zone that you're familiar with that particular software. Now Inkscape is more like Adobe Illustrator, Corel Draw, Visio, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I don't use it. I just downloaded and installed it, brought up an image, so that if you're using those particular programs, then that way you'll be familiar with using Inkscape on your Windows and Linux system. Now with image editors, a great image editor, just like the Bammy video image or the video player, it's very minimalistic. XnView is very minimalistic as well. There's no menu bar. However, if you need menu access, you can right click on an image and you can bring up all sorts of menus that you would normally have on your typical image viewer, and you can advance and back up using your arrow keys. You could press the right arrow key to advance the image, the back button to go to your previous image. The XnView can be installed, like I said, on Windows and Linux and possibly a Mac system. I don't own a Mac, but it says here it can be installed on Windows, Mac, and Linux. This one's a little bit more powerful than your XnView, but it does have your menus across the top. However, when you go in full screen view, you will not have those menus. It's just that this one, you don't have to go in full screen to have that minimalistic look. So I like this. It looks very sleek, elegant, and it matches the Bammy. So if you install the Bammy video player and the XnView image player, you'll have a very minimalistic look. So when you double click on a video player or a video file, it will open up, start playing it, and won't have a lot of things to look around across the edges. And you can go in full screen and definitely not have anything to look at. But the same thing here, you can go in full screen and you will not see those commands at the top. Now DigitCam is just a photo management tool. When you install that on there, it helps you organize the images that's on your system. That's a very, very powerful program. It does more than photo management, but that's all I'm going to talk about in this particular video. I may later do a video in a particular section because this is a very powerful program. Now for slideshow makers, I just recently, not long ago, before Christmas, did a 4K slideshow maker. It's not just for 4K images. You can make them for like 1080p images or even lower. It's very simple to use. You just click on your add to photos, find your photos on your computer, or you can actually, if you have an Instagram account, you can say add from your Instagram account, and you can mix. You can take photos from your computer and you can get pictures from your Instagram. You can add music, and then you can preview it before you actually create it. And if you don't like the output, here's the preferences, and it was gone by quickly, but you can click the preferences and choose what type of file, like MKV, P4, and different types of formats that you can choose. And I do have a section with a chart that gives a little bit more information about the preferences on my website. Here's Photofilmstrip. It gives you a little bit more advanced tools than your typical 4K slideshow maker. However, I do like a feature in this one where it's got like face detection. So if there's a picture of a person, it won't crop the person's head off by using some of the transitions. Here you got more flexibility. You can locate and create the movement around. And this is from Photofilmstrip, a slideshow that I'm using Bammy video player, and kind of showed some images. This is not a true slideshow. It's just images where I snapshotted going from one image to another. And I didn't take a picture of the actual transition because looking at it, it would be hard to understand without seeing the video. Now with archive compressors, if you're familiar with WinZip or WinRAR, you can install both WinZip and WinRAR on Linux. However, you don't have the nice graphical user interface that you have on a Windows system. However, there are programs that allow you to install like 7-zip and pzip that will give you that graphical user interface, or GUI, which allows you to point and click to zip files or compress files or to uncompress files. So 7-zip is a great compression or archive utility, and your pzip is also another great utility, and that was the one I got set up as my default. So when I go back to this folder, if I double click that RAR, which normally works like great with WinRAR, and you can also use WinZip, but those are like paid programs. Here, this is a free open source program. When I double click, it's going to open up my the program, which is pzip, and this is the about pzip, the version 7.0. And I can convert it from one format like R to WinZip. I can extract the file. I can even click add and add files to this. So if I created another test and I wanted to add it to this RAR, I could click the add button, go to that location, click that file, and it will add it here after I save the file. And if I click extract, and I'm not going to because they're already there, it will extract them in this folder, but it will come up prompting me where I want to extract it. So I can go and put this in a different folder, have them in this folder or another folder. But I'm going to cancel this. You can choose other options like delete this file once you're finished, but I'm not going to. So you can even delete files from the archive. I can click this, say delete, so it will be removed from this. And when I exit, I choose to save. And that way that these 3 files will be compressed within this file name, and this file will no longer be part of it. So you can edit a compressed file, or compress a series of files, or uncompress them with pzip and your 7-zip programs. If you're familiar with audio editors, then you can use Audacity or Ocean Audio on your systems to edit your audio files. Sometimes if I'm working with a video that I might be editing in Kdenlive, I might notice there's an audio glitch within that particular video. I could pull this out, extract the audio, save it on my computer, and I could edit the audio within Audacity, where if there's a loud noise, I could take that noise out. I could clip off the beginnings or the ends. There's lots of features with the Audacity and Ocean Audio, and there's additional plugins that you can install, and even skins, because you can see I changed it from the default gray to black. And then once I save it, I could go back, delete the file that I have in Kdenlive, and then go back and insert the new audio into my Kdenlive program to replace the audio within my original video that I was editing. DViaDVD Styler allows you to take videos from your camcorder, or if you made a movie, or if you ripped a movie off of a disc and you wanted to create your own menu, you could come in here and put whatever you want. You could choose what background, you can add backgrounds, choose a title. If you got multiple videos, like if I make a how-to video with Linux, I could say play all, and it would start with the first one, and then when it finished, it go to the second one, or so on and so forth. Or you can choose select a video. It will go to all your videos, select a title, that is, and it will allow you to choose which video you want to view. So this just makes you a DVD that will play in your DVD player, and allows you to have a menu on your screen that will look like a bought DVD, and allows you to burn it to the actual disc as well. It's not just allows you to create a menu, you can burn the DVD, the movies along, or the video files along with your menu. You have other MP4 tools that you can download on both Linux and Windows. MP4 tools contain MP4 joiner and splitter. Like sometimes if I'm making a video, and this is usually within Linux, if I'm doing something like Live Patch, it has me to install it and reboot so that it can load during the boot up. If I'm recording, I can't reboot and keep recording, so I have to stop the video, reboot, and start back. With MP4 Joiner, as long as it's recorded at the same frame rate, and usually my simple screen recorder does, then it allows me to join them with no problem. So it will play continuously from the beginning. That's like the first part, rebooted, come back into the second part of the video, join them together, put it on YouTube. If I need to split a file in half, I could do so. Like if you have a thumb drive and you're running out of space, you got 2 thumb drives and don't want to delete things off, you could split your video file in half and put it on 2 thumb drives that you have space for, go back to another computer and join them together. So it's a very nice program. Handbrake is a very powerful program. I'm not going to get into all the features of what it can and can't do, but it's a great tool for changing one format to another. As I have already said, I have a little box that allows me to record over-the-air television in its raw data, raw video file. I can copy the data to my computer. I can say save it as a 1080p, 30 frames per second. These are predetermined values. I could say 480p if I don't really care as much about having the 1080p quality. I can even increase the quality, or I can choose 720. I can choose whatever I like, or I can go through here and customize my own custom settings. And I can do multiple videos by adding to the queue. Then I could go back to my queue when I'm finished and say start, and it will go through and do every video within the queue. And it will convert them from one video file to another. So if I'm having MP4, I can save it as an MKV, or vice versa, or other type of formats. And there's also where you can choose like a device, like if you have an iPad, an iPhone, or like web, you can choose like for YouTube and other type of places where you post them on the web. It would choose the settings that's best for those type of online video players. WinFF allows you to change from one type of video format to another. Or it also, if you click the video link, you can change your dimensions. Like when I make this video here, it's not true at 1080p. It's not your 1280 by 1080 resolution. So I have to bring it in this WinFF for this particular system and convert it to your 1080p resolution so it looks right on YouTube without having the black bars on the left and right hand side. Now your text editors and IDEs, there's Lines, there's GEdit. My favorite text editor on Linux is GEdit. I will tell you, if you download this and install it on Windows, it will be a little slower than your typical Notepad, but if you want to get familiar with it, it's very quick on Linux, and that's why I like it. It's a very nice little text editor, and I'm not going to get into other features that text editors have. Notepad++ can be installed both on Linux and Windows. It kind of uses Wine within the installer program, so it allows you to install it without having to configure Wine. Now, this is like your Notepad on steroids, kind of like I said that some of the other versions like your Penta is like MS Paint on steroids. Then I have Atom and Visual Studio Code that are great text editors, or they can be used with plugins to work very similar like an IDE, which is an integrated development environment. Now that's just a quick brief description of each of the programs that I put on here. There are so many more software that you can use in Windows and Linux. And if you're using Windows 7 and it's before January the 14th of 2020, you might want to start installing some of this software and get familiar with it, get in that comfort zone. So if you decide that you don't want to upgrade to Windows 10, that you can eventually switch over to Linux. And I do have all the things to help you. How to install Ubuntu Mate, how to burn an ISO file, so when you download the Linux ISO of your choice, you can put it either on a DVD, and if you do not have a DVD burner on your system or DVD drive, you can create yourself a bootable USB, then go into your CMOS, and I have all the instructions for doing that on this particular web page. Now, if you do make Linux on a DVD or USB, you can plug it into your system and boot from it with a live CD or a live USB and give it a test drive before you actually install it. Now, if you're giving it a test drive and you like it, make sure that you got all the data on your Windows system backed up before you install Linux. I've had people that try to install Linux and realize they didn't back up everything they had, and they asked me could I restore it, and I told them more than likely I can't. There's tools that allow you to look for things that's on your hard drive as long as it hasn't been overwritten, but once it's been overwritten, you're not going to be able to restore it. So make sure you have a backup of all your important data. Then you're ready. When you get ready to, you can burn your DVD or USB and give it a try. Another program that you can use is a virtual machine, Oracle Virtual Machine. If I go to my view and use icons, it's called Oracle Virtual Machine VirtualBox. If you don't have experience using that, stay away from it. But if you do, you can open it up and install Linux to give Linux a try on your Windows system, and it may appear to run a little slower or a lot slower than if you were to actually install it on your hard drive. But this is to give you a quick overview to let you know that if you are a Windows 7 user, that pretty soon, January the 14th, you are no longer going to receive support from Microsoft. So your system will be vulnerable after July the 14th. And if you found this video on YouTube and you're watching it after July the 14th, be aware that your system is no longer receiving updates, that it's not broken. If you notice that you haven't gotten an update in a while, you're not going to receive updates. And if you contact Microsoft, they're not going to give you any technical support. So your options are to upgrade to a newer version of Windows or to switch over to Linux. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you if you're a Windows user, or at least a Windows 7 user. Now, if you do like the look of this and decide to upgrade to Windows 10, I can add this to the bottom of my web page after I upload the video. You can see, you can go back, have your, it will come up with all your Microsoft products. You can right click and say remove them. Like if I want to remove that, I can right click on it and I can add things, delete things, and I can customize my menu to look very similar to Windows 7. Now, that's not an image of me. When I created my Microsoft account many years ago, I found that little picture online because my dad used to raise chickens, and I thought that was very humorous, and it's always stayed attached to my Microsoft account. So that's not me on that image. But hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and have a great day.